you? Oh, here we go. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can hear you and see you.
Oh,
Perfect.
dude. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. How
Heck
is
yeah.
everything getting ready for you? That was
Oh my gosh. It was a saga.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've been prepping for the last 2 hours, building, like doing the whole lighting setup, and I used the Elgato Cam Link, and for some fun reason, it just felt like going rogue this morning. So thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it.
Well, you guys are listening to Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. I'm just going right into it. I'm really excited. I thank you guys for tuning in this week. I have with me Shelby Ring. And first and foremost, I love what you're doing with your ambience. I saw what you do, which makes sense. Duh. Like fucking duh. But like I okay, so I'm super petty, and I think everyone already who's listening already knows, like, God damn, here he goes again. You're like, I'm like a child with
Just go
money.
off. Go
And
off.
whenever I see stuff that I want or want to do, I'm like, why aren't I doing that? And honestly, within the last few interviews I've been doing, I'm like, okay, it's only audio right now. I don't do any video. And I
Hmm.
just don't have the space for it yet. But that's coming.
Yes.
That's coming. Like in the end of the
Yeah.
year, that's coming. But as far as like actually having a space and like setting an ambience, like I'm just in my like my kids' toys is over there, like,
Yeah.
but I don't have the space for it because I have an apartment.
Yes. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
working on buying a house, and having my own space.
Yeah.
Um, but what you're doing is so cool, and when I break it down, it really isn't much. Like you're not overly complicating it, and I think that's the point of what you do, right?
Yeah. I mean, the concept is to make it turnkey. And I'm glad, I'm like, let's go down this first rabbit hole of
Yes.
building a set design, right? Building something that's sustainable for if you have a topic, if you have something that you just freaking love it and you want to build a little community around it. It is the concept that you want something to be convenient, simple, and plug and play.
Yeah.
And I think that at this point in and I'm laughing to myself because when you're like, wow, like look at your set design, this was the response of going on other people's shows and
Uh-huh.
feeling so like, oh, wait, I just did everything I'm not supposed to do. I got a big old window behind me.
Uh-huh.
I'm blasting, it was just the trial and error of when it comes to doing video recording on such a just down to earth level, like we're doing a Zoom platform
Hmm.
call, but instead of doing major production, how can you make it simple and turnkey? And as 15 minutes behind when we should have started, my setup is not the most simple right now because I unplug stuff and then I go and goof off with something and then I come back and I'm like, okay, we're ready. And then it goes rogue because that's the kind of day it is.
Because of AI. I get it. No, thank you, Elon. I get it. No, I totally get it. And but I guess like and because of so I guess just let's start. Okay. One rabbit hole at a time. Who are you? We know who you are. You're Shelby Ring, correct? What
Yes.
do you do? Tell me a little bit about yourself because I just looking at what you're doing here. It's just on paper, being a yacht chef and now doing cinematography is such a weird juxtaposition for you or for
Yeah.
anybody, really.
Yeah.
How did you get here? Let's start there. How did you uh, food? Yeah.
I found film underwater.
Mm,
I started filming below sea level. So I got into a career of making memories from free diving with big schools of baitfish. I thought it was the coolest thing. It was like National Geographic in real life, and
mm,
I got lost in it. So, and the reason that the juxtaposition of those two worlds merging was on my lunch breaks from preparing lunch service before dinner service. I would have a little bit of time. And for context for people that if they didn't read a bio or any of that, so I used to be a charter yacht chef in the British Virgin Islands. That was
mm.
my ground zero, cooking for families, take them island hopping 8 days at a time. It was amazing, just a wonderful experience. It was a scuba diving boat. So in between lunch and dinner service, I could go hop in the water and goof off. Guests were ashore or they're taking naps or who knows. And that was my moment to myself. And I had an aha moment. I mean, I was freshly out of a divorce. It was my first time. I was 22 at the time, and I never had dated before that. So this was
Mhm.
Shelby, the individual, as a baby, grown ass adult. Who am I and what am I up to? And I was just so I couldn't believe that my life, I couldn't believe that on my lunch break, I could hop into cerulean blue water and see brain coral that's the size of minivans and weave through all these amazing creatures. And just, I loved it. I love it. And being able to document that, I realized, I mean, for all the variables of who knows if those beautiful reefs are going to be available in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, with what's happening on our planet, uh, I wanted to remember that moment. I wanted to put it on ice and so I could always access it. So that was jumping in the water with a GoPro. I didn't know what I was doing. I was flying around thinking I was like Superman underwater, and
Mm.
I had the best time, but it was rooted in, I just wanted to be able to remember my moments. And I was very proud of something I never thought I would be able to do. And I wanted to document it. I think I've always been someone that I've always been a memory treasure keeper, always storing little mementos, old sweaters from my best friends, just little things like that. That's always been who I am. And I started making these videos for my guests on vacation. If I liked them, then I would be like, oh, we make these highlights. And the owners of the yacht that I worked on, they loved it. They're like, this is so great. And, little did I know I was giving them free advertising and cutting them these highlight videos. But then other vessels started reaching out and saying, hey, could you ride along with us for the day when you're off charter? And could you make one of those videos that you're making? It's so cool. And we can throw a little money at you. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, that sounds great. So I tagged along with some kiteboarding schools. I tagged along with other boats. And it just was something that organically was happening because I just thought what I was cutting was the coolest stuff I had ever seen. I would put, it's just baitfish and, there'd be parrotfish, and I would set it to my favorite music at the time. And when I would come back from charter, I would invite all of my friends that were also not on charter onto
Mhm.
our sailboat, and we would have a premiere party and we'd always have leftover food from our guests, and so it was like we would have a little mini feast of leftover crap from very nice charter weeks, and we'd have a premiere party, and I loved it. So speed up into building momentum when I came back to the US and came stateside after gallivanting in the Caribbean for almost half a decade. It was a major culture shock, and I didn't care to open a restaurant because you can't jump into cerulean blue water on your lunch break. It's
Mhm.
not the same thing. And I just figured, well, maybe I'll start trying to film some weddings or something, and speed up to 11 years later. Here we are. I'm still perpetually being a dork with cameras.
Have you always been a water baby, or did that kind of just like start out later in life? I guess the only reason I think that I've always thought I was a water baby myself because I always loved the beach. I always loved going into water to a degree. And then I
Okay.
was started going deep sea fishing within the last couple of years, and then actually going out there, and then realizing I can't stand for shit. I get nauseous. I was really sick, but then the following 2 weeks later, I took the courses here in Oregon to do the boating license. So like
Yeah.
I'm a captain now, but I don't have a boat, and I get really seasick. But I wanted another hat. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I guess I the fact that you are out there, none like this has been your life.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question of the was I always the water baby, or was it something that was adaptive? My family, so I grew up in Austin, Texas, and we always went out on the lake. So I remember being really little and my parents putting me in the where all the skis stored in the middle of the boat, like a center, I don't know, hidden doorway. They would just put towels down there and I couldn't crawl away, and I was in the
Mhm.
middle of everything. So I remember going to sleep and hearing the waves as a really young child, and that always was very pacifying. So I didn't put it together till much later of because I was like like lake water, that's not real water, like that's a pond. But I just the reason I got involved with being on an island, living on the water, living on sailboats for several years, I was terrified of the water. I was terrified
Mm.
of being able to have water skills and survival skills. My dad is super old school, and he's one of those guys that's, I'm going to do it all myself, and you just sit back there and watch. And it didn't empower any of us to be helpful with, docking the boat, bringing it up on the trailer, any of that. So I just had a life goal to overcome my fear of not knowing how to be competent on the water if there was a collision or anything dangerous that could happen. And I found a big pirate ship that did snorkel charters for cruise ship guests, and I just came on super green, and they actually prefer that you don't have previous boating experience because you're
Mm.
not bringing bad habits onto the boat of,
Okay.
oh, this is how to tie a cleat, this is the right way to do this thing. If you come in green, they're able to teach you the way they like. So I went from a third mate to second mate to first mate, worked day charters for a while, and then went through a divorce in the middle of all that. And in the midst of all that process, my goal was the only reason I would come back down to the Caribbean is if I landed a charter yacht chef job exclusively in the British Virgin Islands, not the US.
Mhm.
And that was the only job. And I was doing a STCW safety training, like what you're describing, just adding more of those credentials to do international work. And the woman in my class next to me was like, oh, the chef on the boat that's right next to our mooring ball, she just left and they need a chef and they only work in the BVI. So it was such a beautiful synchronistic moment of that was the only opportunity I was interested in. I'd been there for a while and it opened up. So yeah, all the survival skills, life skills, close calls, if you want to build a skill set and you say, I want to learn how to deal with when you're in a head-on collision, then you get to be in head-on collisions and understand
Mm.
what do you do and how do people respond. And it was a really beautiful chapter in my life.
You mentioned a couple times the divorce, and that's always rough on somebody on land. You're out here like trying to build your career and still explore the world. At one point, does it stop becoming ambition and becomes therapeutic?
Mm, yeah, was a really it was a beautiful transition because when I was in that relationship, we were land based and
Okay.
I did day charters. So to transition and be primarily, I mean, we lived on the sailboats that I worked on for term charters. And so my living quarters, we called them, affectionately called them coffins, but they're the forepeak of a catamaran. So the front pointy part, there's one side for the captain and one side for the chef.
Hmm.
And but learning how to, as you're saying, the therapy of discovering yourself and coming into a new chapter, it was the most beautiful place to land after going through a lot of trauma, a lot of reorienting and recalibrating in life. Because we always had families on the boat. We always had really fun groups of
Mm.
two, three, four sets of friends. So, and as I mentioned, I was a baby. I came from a very controlling religious background, didn't date, we got married so we could have sex, just very, very purity culture context. So to be an individual, I was terrified. And it was so precious. The captain I worked with those first few years, my all-time favorite captain, shout out to Roosty. But that world, it was so perfectly protected of having family be an institution. I had to interact with people's children and really sweet couples, and it just kept me anchored because I think I was very terrified that I was just gonna, be super ratchet and go start a
Mm.
dumpster fire of my life. So it was the perfect way to be held in such a huge time of transition.
Have you had a dumpster fire before? Because those are fun. I've done a couple of
Oh,
those in my time. Those are so much fun, but very, very dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, if you wanted anyone, that's okay.
Yeah.
But you were talking about like religion. What were you?
So it was evangelical Christianity that was a mix of charismatic and evangelical, and then just had a very,
Oh my God. Because I
very,
always tell people I'm Catholic by default, but I feel like a lot of the religions are very like guilt based
yes.
and then something that, like I've been doing this for 5 years now. I attract Mormons, and I was like, that's why I was like, are you Mormon? Because I be attracting Mormons. I love them to death. Their
Dude,
story is so
kindest
fun.
people. Yeah.
Sweetest people I've ever met.
Yes.
But their teachings are so wild. It's almost like I can't even be mad at it. So for a second, I was like, oh my God, is this girl Mormon?
Yeah. You're bringing in the Morms. They're
Then
just gravitating to you, Louise.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
That's so awesome. Yeah, no, the evangelical Christianity space, I didn't grow up in it. I
Mm.
That was the interesting thing was I chose to convert when I was 14, and I had some really ratchet party animal years from 12 to 14, which I mean, it's funny now that people are like, I'm like, well, I don't need to go party hard. Like I did that as a preteen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a moment of this radical decision at 14, and I was just all in. And drinking the Kool-Aid. It tasted good at the time. And it's interesting to go full circle of following a culture that, it advocated purity culture, modesty culture. A woman's worth is in her virginity. What can she offer a man? If she's ruined that, she's ruined. She's, wrecked. Just her value goes down. So it was pretty fascinating to come full circle of yes, there was some really, really rough things that was very destructive. And I can also recognize a few of the things that I still live for and love today, like when I first came to, it was a youth group retreat.
Mhm.
I I was very punk rock. I was, this little goth music lover person, pretty much the same person I am now, just less eye makeup.
Hell yeah.
But none of the young women at this youth retreat would talk to me, interact with me, and some of the youth leaders wouldn't approach me either. And a few years later, I came to learn from some of the youth leaders that were there, they were very scared of me. I was a very intimidating sort of creature. And so to come full circle and realize how much rejection I felt and not being embraced, and I was coming with an open mind to a new environment as a preteen kiddo. Um, it hurt me so much that once I fell in love with the message and the languaging around, this concept of some sort of thing that's bigger than us, that has a plan and all these beautiful things of hope. That was what I was looking for. Um, I made it my business to oversee all of the greeter, anything that was first impressions for kiddos coming to that community. I was really adamant about always being in the lobby. If someone was new, I would always come up, introduce
Mm.
myself, and sit beside them because I didn't want anyone else that was in a very desperate situation to feel the same amount of rejection socially because they're a newcomer. And what's really precious about that was I'm naturally a very shy person. Social experiences, social outings, I really have to hype myself up. I have to
Mm.
hype myself up to be willing to share, these stories, this context of my life. And um, that opportunity helped me tap into a part of who I am that's never wavered. And it's always lit my heart on fire to get to welcome people and to be able to invite people into something where they feel that they are allowed to be here and take up space. And that's morphed through the years of, I don't think you're going to burn in hell if you think different thoughts than me and different approach. But just the concept of celebrating different people's walks, what they've gone through. And it's pretty precious to look back on a very abrasive time where I was learning a lot of language, a lot of overarching thought that I made myself wrong. And, parts of me were to not be embraced, right? And instead to recognize there were some really beautiful seeds that were planted in that time. And you can find the gold and continue to move forward with it. But yeah, wild times, wild times.
And because you started like later, you already have consciousness. You're 14 years old. You're going
Yeah.
into this knowing what you're doing. How was your family? Were they supportive of your change in behavior, or were they just like how was that support system for you?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. My family, we originally were going to just your traditional, non-denominational, just show up on Sundays, catch Easter services. Um, it was more of a social interaction rather than something that, your heart is passionate towards something. And I mean, my family, the reason I went to that youth group event was my mom was going to ground me if I didn't go. So it was a very much a, gun to the head, do this or you're grounded type of energy. And my motives in originally going was there were some hot guys that I was trying to get in their pants. So, it came from a very raw, yeah, my little gutter phase, gutter possum mode. But when I started getting involved in that community, it they were embracing of it. They were also having their own experience of dropping into the world of speaking in tongues and let's pray for people and
Oh, that's
we
a
believe
thing,
in
huh?
healing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
It's pretty much Hogwarts. That's it's evangelical
No.
Hogwarts. Yeah. Yeah. But it was an interesting time for our family because my home environment, my father struggled with alcoholism and being
Mm.
a very aggressive alcoholic for most of my upbringing. So it was a moment of trying to be something different as a family. I have an older brother. He was coming into his manhood that was conflicting with my dad's paradigm of reality. So
Mm.
it was a time that sucked. It sucked super hard. So it was a calibrating, and I think everyone coming into a different age in each of our lives. And it was not all sunshine and rainbows, and it wasn't for a really long time. And there's still lots of ups and downs. I think for my parents too, it's been really precious. Even as someone that went to ministry school, did all the things I was supposed to do and found myself in a psychologically and sexually abusive marriage and had to
Mm.
break my vows, step away from something and and be ostracized from a community that I loved. But it was pretty powerful for my mom when I was going through that divorce. I was 22 and I was telling her, I'm in the Caribbean. I'm filing for divorce. I have to come back to Texas, and saying I'm staying with someone. I'm scared. I'm freaked out, and her saying, "Well, I'm just going to pray that the Lord brings you guys back together. I'm going to pray that His hand is in there, and that
Mm.
and I had to stop her and say." Mom, I don't want you to push your agenda. I need you to see me as your daughter that's coming out of a really fucked up relationship. And I need you to be my mom. So can you just drop the agenda and just can you be in my corner? And she paused on the phone call. I remember right where I was. I was in Red Hook. I was on the docks. There's tarpon that are to the right of the mangroves there. Like I know exactly the moment because she paused and she was like, okay, I'll be in your corner. You let me know what you need.
Just like that?
Yeah.
No,
And
no
it
fight?
changed, no, it changed our orientation and it showed me her humanity in a way that we'd never bridged that gap before. And it brought us into a place of like, just no BS. And it opened up one of the most beautiful, yeah, the most beautiful relationship with my mother that we still cultivate to this day. And it was the sweetest thing that when I stopped with the facade and I asked her, can you drop the agenda of what you think you're supposed to say? And can you just be my mom? Because I'm your daughter and I'm hurting right now. And for it to come full circle where she ended up opening up about things in her upbringing and her journey that she'd never spoke to any other soul, and she was
Mm.
able to confide in me. So it was the coolest thing of um, coming through a system of beliefs, stepping away from them, and it inviting something that is arguably some of the most beautiful forms of life and connection. So it's been a perpetual journey.
And so are you the youngest of your family? Do you have any, are you all boys or you have
So
sisters?
I have one older brother.
I
Yep.
just want to, just you two.
Yeah.
So, and so your dad being an alcoholic, he's instilling his, masculine features, to the family, and then he's trying to teach your brother that. And then you're mixing religion with, so like toxic male energy is its own beast on its own. But then you throw in the fear of God into that. I feel like that's a weird recipe. So now you have that added, and then your older brother, right? He's picking up things on traits like that. Um, and not saying that he's a bad dude, but like he sees what your dad does. He has, you act like you what you see. Um, at what point do you discover your own femininity, and what does femininity mean to you growing up in
Mm.
this fucking mess of a pot of just different
Ooh,
things?
beautiful question. Wow. Yeah, way to love this wormhole. What an amazing question. Um, so it was not safe to be a woman in my household growing up. It was not a place where the ability to soften and trust and let your guard down, that was not welcomed because there was very much a Jekyll and Hyde complex with my father.
Hmm.
And so I always grew up with very much a fight or flight experience of when to get ready to fight, freeze, or appease.
Oh,
Always
okay.
get ready to, just avoid, look the other way, hide. So, and stacking, yeah, the patriarchal, my former partner, that the husbands, wives submit to your husbands the way that Christ loved the church. That
Mm.
just being the most beautiful thing to dangle, of constant control of here's my trump card to be able to take over the conversation or what you want or how to gaslight into, well, it's my way or the highway because I'm the man. So it was a really big journey. The most beautiful way, the turning point for me was when I was actually courting my soon to be husband at that time when I was 19. We started trying to salsa dance in our living room one day. And I had never danced before, but I always wanted to dance with someone. So he's trying to teach me some steps, and he throws his hands up in the air, and he says, "You're a terrible dancer. Like
Oh my
you
God.
are a horrible follow. Like I could never dance with you. I'm not going to dance with you." And then he never danced with me again over 3 years of being
Mm.
married. And so that broke my heart, because I was eating up the Disney propaganda of, Belle and Beauty and the Beast, and like I wanted to waltz, I wanted to be on the dance floor, I wanted to be that graceful creature, and that was not, I was told I wasn't good enough for that. I didn't make the cut. And so, in the midst of going through the divorce, I had to file in Austin, Texas. I was taken away from my job where I was a first mate.
Mm.
There was no water around. I couldn't work. And so I had to, and the holding time in Texas is about 3 months. And so I was like, what am I going to do for 3 months? And I decided I'm going to change the narrative about me not being worthy of being danced with. And so I took 40 hours a week of partner dancing lessons at a
Hell
local
yeah.
studio. And it's called Go Dance Austin. It was a beautiful community that's still functioning, and they have a few locations still to this day. But I would show up at 4 p.m. and start their first class, and I would just stack any of the level 1 classes that I could attend. So anywhere from salsa, merengue, two-step, East Coast swing, West Coast swing, foxtrot, Lindy hop, belly dancing, just anything. I was just there for it. Argentinian tango, let's try it. And
Yes.
I just got lost in just showing up, and that was the work that I was focusing on in the midst
Mm.
of grieving, in the midst of the trauma of a divorce process, and all the colors that surface in that time. Um, but it was a turning point for me because I'd never interacted with any medium that gave boundaries and structure to etiquette between men and women. So in waltz, when I began to understand the frame of where my elbow is meant to be placed on top of a man's upper arm, and that his hand should always be on my shoulder blade, it should never go down to my hips or my waist. That's inappropriate. So for the first time, I was learning a medium that taught me standards. And that was
Mm.
something that was never introduced to me. So it gave me vocabulary, and it also gave me a really beautiful experience of some of the private instructors that would do one-on-one sessions. I always was told, Shelby, you're pushing me away. Your shoulders are tight and you're being really defensive. Soften, relax. You don't have to stay locked out. And I had such a challenge softening and allowing a man to embrace me and to build a frame
Mm.
to move together. And so it was just the most beautiful metaphor of, I was like, I am dancing right now. And I was just bracing for this impact of something there was nothing that was going to come. So partner dancing actually was my ground zero of introducing me to any form of following, because everything up until that point, I was just always I would use language like being in my masculine. Everyone has a masculine and feminine expression
Mhm.
in them. I just was always had my guard up, always was had to, I was a backseat driver, a passenger seat driver, just always micromanaging. And it was exhausting. So partner dancing opened up a layer where I started to learn how to receive. And it became my true north, because then over the next decade of meeting people, dating people, opening myself up to love again, my one promise to myself, I don't care what someone's religion is, I don't care what their walk of life is. They just have to be an excellent partner dancer and lead me well in partner dancing. And it could be any of the 10, 12 styles of movement, just something that we can share a physical connection and enjoy that together. And all of my girlfriends in the last decade were like, Shelby, you are shooting yourself in the foot because you are asking for an attribute that is such a 0.0005% of the male population still dances. And there's so many great guys. If you would just let go of this thing you think you need, you would meet so many great people. But I just held out with that because when I dance, my soul is on fire. I am so amped. I'm so happy. It's just that is the ultimate presence, the ultimate way of just sharing a moment with somebody. And there's so many metaphors within it, because you have to be willing to fail in front of somebody. You have to be
Mhm.
willing to step on somebody's toes. It's often someone maybe you think is attractive. So you have to bring a certain level of humility as you're trying and failing 12 inches from some person's face.
That's
And
scary, yeah.
oh my gosh, it's so scary. It's so scary. And the ability to soften, allow someone to lead you, and then also learn how to maneuver if someone is leading you in a way, like sometimes in the Latin dance community, some of these guys they want to whip you around like 8 times in a row. And if you're not hydrated, your inner ear, like it can suck. You can get really dizzy. And so learning how to masterfully be in partnership with someone, even if it's for 3 minutes,
Mhm.
and be able to be a whole person and go with the flow, or if the flow is a little too intense, bring that elbow down and stop the turns, you know? So it's dance has been an absolute game changer for me to orient with the opposite sex, with partners, because it gave a nonverbal vocabulary to problem solve together and to create fun together.
Um, that really that makes me sad too. Just thinking about like I'm not even now I'm like upset, but like that would piss me off if anything with that when your ex was like, I don't want to dance with you. Like you didn't even give me a chance.
Yeah.
Was he a good dancer? Please tell me he was a good dancer.
Oh my God, he was a terrible dancer.
Then what the fuck?
The thing is, what the sweetest thing is in this journey of learning different styles of movement and expression, um, a true follow is only as good as where her lead can take her. If you are genuinely following in a shared dance and you're not back leading, you're not turning yourself, you're not, nudging towards what you want. If you're genuinely matching your lead, you only go as far as where they invite you to go. And it's just really precious to look back in, him saying, "Oh, you're a terrible follow. You're horrible. I could never dance with you." And that was
He
more
was
of
the
a
shitty leader.
yeah, it was a reflection of his ability of, okay, I actually don't have the skill set. I don't know how to take you where I need to go. And on that same a little blip of hope in that journey from you're not worthy of being danced with to immersing in 40 hours a week of classes, I went to a sailing regatta in that last year that we were married, and there's all these different sailors from all over the world, these big Polish guys. I mean, it's just a really fun time. And there's live music, and I remember sitting on the edge of the dance floor just watching the couples dance and admiring. And this big barrel-chested guy that was probably 5'2", but just he's a bulldog of a human. He came up to me and he was like, "Do you want to dance?" And I said what I always said was, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I don't dance. I'm not good at dancing." And he was like, "Nonsense." He's like, "Come on." And so we get on the dance floor. I was like, I don't know the steps. And I don't know how to follow. I don't know how to do this. He was like, "Just relax." He's like, I'm just going to hold you and we are going to dance." And we would start moving around. I was so nervous, but whenever there would be some grand swell in the music, he would physically just pick me up and twirl me or do whatever movement. And it was beautiful because here's a man that saw beauty in someone that was obviously curious about the dance, about the exchange. And he was able to cover me in my inadequacies, in my nervousness, and have so much grace towards me of if I was fumbling around and stumbling over our feet, he would just pick me up, keep the frame, and we would move together. And it was just such a moment of this is what I always envisioned it could be like. This is what I always wanted to be, the belle. I always wanted to be able to move about a dance floor and be something that looked like freedom. And I'm so thankful for that amazing salty sailor, barrel-chested bulldog of a human to come up and just lead with inviting me to share a dance together.
That's such a good story, and how you like turn that could have been a really negative thing and you just kept it positive. But then like now I start thinking about your friends too, like the ghetto side of me would have been like, bitch, like I'm trying to heal myself. But like but then I started thinking, okay, maybe it's we only accept the love we think we deserve, right? So
Mm.
that's their version of that. Like, oh, don't go. Why are you expecting a man to dance? They don't do that. It's many good guys, and it's like that's their level of love and acceptance. But you weren't there. You're on a different, frequency. Do you find yourself like being and not any shade to your friends, do you find yourself like moving on from people like that? Because I feel like
Mm.
you can only fly with eagles. You can't hang out with chickens and expect to fly with them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you see yourself in that position where you then now are seeing those people getting left behind in your
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah, yes, I can say that the women in my life that were naysaying this true north, this standard, this value that I had, um, none of them are in my life anymore, for
Mm,
one. But also along those same lines, I have had amazing women, sisters in my life now that they have their own equivalent movement practices, or, I tend, in my inner circle, I tend to be drawn to people that have, whether they're into jujitsu or if they're into contact improv is a thing here in Austin. Just any type of a physical practice that's a mastery, some type of thing they're refining, pole dancing,
hmm.
just something where this is your thing and you're always working to become better at it. Um, the women in my life that are on that level, they get it. They're like, you stay true to what hits for you and you don't settle for anything less than that. And I've had those supportive friends that have came through that they're like, dude, I trust in your process. Like I may not understand what partner dancing means to you, but it sounds like it's really important to you. So, don't settle. And I mean, the epilogue to this is I did find my partner of 2.5 years. We're both partner dancers. He's just as much of a dancing nerd dorko as I am, and we had similar backgrounds with dance, and we still dance, and
Hell yeah.
we had a journey of almost a year of dancing together only as partner dancing partners, and just had a year's worth of nonverbal communication. That was the foundation of our friendship. And I was just chatting with a friend about this, of when we come into times of conflict, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. When things get really heavy, we have this wealth of nonverbal rapport that we can tap into from just standing together in the living room and barely moving our feet, but we're sharing a dance.
Mm.
So that's been something really precious that I knew dancing was important to me, and I didn't understand the full repertoire of why, like what would be the fruit of that. And it's an entire other realm of when you're clashing with someone intellectually, when you are disagreeing on an approach, and when the passions, the energy, all those things are misaligned, to just come together in physicality and just sovereignty and share an experience for 3 to 5 minutes together. It changes your state, and it's, to me, it's a beautiful thing of another language to share together when English or yelling doesn't work.
What would be your advice for somebody who's like in that wallflower state, looking into the people, because it's very, I didn't realize how common it was until I had that same problem where I didn't know how to dance. I don't know how to dance. I don't know how to do it with my hands, but I would be there admiring the people as well and what they're doing.
Mm.
And it's like it's almost like you want someone to come up to you and be like, "Hey, let me teach you," but you're just still sitting in your own thoughts. What advice do you have for somebody who's like trying to get out there and wanting to do what you did?
Oh man. If the desire is in your heart, you're already a dancer.
Mm,
If you want that for yourself, you already have the seeds. I think that it is something, because through my years of trying to transform men into dancers that could care less. Um, if it's a passion, if it's something that when you watch it, your heart jumps, it's in there for you. I
mm,
would say that, because the next thing is people say, "Oh, well, you can teach me, you can teach me." But like for me, I'm a follow in most of the formats of dance that I know. So I don't know the instigating side of the equation. I don't know
mm.
the lead's roles. So it's honestly one of those things, and it differentiates you pretty immensely, is if you want to dance, go seek out lessons. There is
Mm.
no way around that. And it's really sweet when I hear people say, yeah, like I like dance and I feel it. And um, you you have to understand the structure of a format of movement and come into a flow state with that, and then you can break the rules. But until you understand frame and tension and some baseline cues for different formats of dance, there is no faking it, particularly for leads. And that's often, it tends to be the man. And it is it's a journey and it's a skill and it's a lost art, I think, for a reason, because it's not easy. Just like anything that is impressive in this world, it is something that you work towards and you study it. I remember when I was taking those 40 hours a week of classes, and just that was my evenings, and my weekends were these socials. There came a time probably 6 weeks into it that my brain just got really muddled, and everything was just, it wasn't settling yet. It was just like my brain was figuring out what do I do with the East Coast swing footwork versus the salsa versus bachata. But I just made it part of my lifestyle that when I was driving, I would cue up my salsa playlist and I would just say out loud, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2,
Mm.
3, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Or, with East Coast swing, triple step, rock step, triple step, rock step. And I'm like cutting vegetables and I'm doing these little footwork to just build muscle memory in the midst of my everyday
Oh.
activities, so that whenever I was in a class, I wasn't fumbling over the baseline of it, but I could start to accumulate the next layers of the styling, or the next layers of how do I do a pivot turn, or I don't really understand like what is a left hand turn. So there is no shortcut to it, and particularly for men, because you're the one stringing along a sequence of movement. So and there are tons of amazing YouTube videos, because people are like, oh, I don't have a dance studio in my city, in my space. Latin dance, there's so many amazing pockets of it in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I've spent the last decade. The vibrant Latin scene there is amazing. So it's really either follow pockets of opportunity if you see Facebook groups, or even just if you can find a YouTube channel or start your own, bring 2 or 3 friends over that say, man, that would be cool. Have a little couples get together, or just a group of single friends, even better, and just rotate with partners and build your
Mm.
skill set, because you have to do it with people. You have to experience that. And and it is terrifying. And I mean, I was in lessons even after I learned in a classroom environment and I was safe there. It still took me several years to deviate and go dance in the wild. Like, don't
Mm.
just dance in a ballroom setting. And of course, the first time that I did that, I just had the most horrific experience, because I went to a salsa social and this guy beelines towards me and he's like, do you know how to Lindy Hop? And it had been like 6 years since the last time I had Lindy Hopped. And so we're listening to salsa music and we're doing a format of movement that makes no sense with the environment. But I think this sweet guy just wanted to come up and he wanted to interact with me. And so we had that exchange, but I was so blindsided and I was so overwhelmed. And at that time in my life, I didn't have any good anchoring practices of, hey, what's my goal? What is my indicator when it's too much? What's my action? What's my easy social out? I didn't have any of that planned. I was just a little baby deer in headlights, and it sucked. It scared me, and I didn't go out dancing in the wild again for probably 2 to 3 years after that. But
Oof.
yeah, but it's just when you can find camaraderie and with a group of friends, if they're learning at the same pace as you, um, lean into that. Lean into the sense
Mm.
of you're not the only one that's trying something new. And also, if you try to go out social dancing with a friend that's on an equal level, you always have a buffer of a buddy. And I think that just is so helpful when you're in a social environment, for learning a skill that involves contact with other people.
And that's fucking beautiful, by the way. That is, I'm gonna take some of that for myself because, yeah, I be stealing ideas all the time. Like I
Yes,
just stole like five things from you today.
do it,
Um,
do it.
and then and now like bouncing back because I'm very curious on the cinematography part because you did all this, you went through your journey. Now you're doing what you basically always loved doing. Everything you've done in your life, I feel like you've loved doing it, which is great. I've always heard that if you do what you love, the money follows. I get it. Um, but who are your, who are your influences towards cinematography? Like the way you shoot, the way you do things is very unique to you, but also there's tastes of different um things that you've taken over the years. Like what is your inspiration for that?
Ooh, I am.
Are you a film person as well? Like I guess that's also like do you have hip background in film?
I just loved movies when I was growing up. I wasn't like a, oh, I'm studying this filmmaker. Like I went to one of those meetups and I just felt like I wasn't cool enough to be there.
Same, I did that, and I was like, I love Wes Anderson, but I'm not gonna sit here and talk about him for 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah. I think my style of working with video, it was a little bit backwards from a lot of people because for me, it was jumping in the water with a GoPro that was the size of my hand.
Hmm.
Um, it was just about documenting the moment and the feeling. And so even to this day, with the rigs and the equipment that we work with, I'm still over there going rogue handheld filming. I still love being able to be free of not using slider rails I mean, there's a time and place for a proper slider rail, of course, but just the freedom to drop into a pocket of people. We do a lot of events and big weddings, beautiful productions. Um, but my style, I would say, I love capturing the candid moments. It's the moment
Mm.
rather than a group of people lined up to, oh, say cheese. It's the moment right after the awkward styling when people start cutting jokes. Those are when the real smiles come out. So I love gleaning like the real and finding the candid moments when people have no idea that they're being filmed. So it's like on a dance floor at a big event, it's not just the big baby mosh pit in the middle of a group of friends. It's the couple that's been married for 15 years that their babies are with the babysitter for the night and they're slow dancing in the middle of a really energetic song. That's the shot that
Oh
I want.
wow, that's
that's
powerful.
that's the type of pieces that I think that film is a mirror for people to see themselves as how beautiful they really are. And that's and it doesn't matter if we're doing talking head corporate work or if we're doing a documentary. It's being able to take something that someone's doing a mundane, they're managed IT service providers and they just work, behind the scenes all day every day. I want to be able to showcase the mastery of people where that's their life work and to give them an amazing day where on our media days when we're working with B2B companies that they're like, oh, why do we have to have cameras here, to just make sure that they feel so welcomed, that they, I'm the queen of cutting terrible jokes that only 9-year-olds find funny. Just something to help people relax. And even if they are doing a talking head video talking about their unique value proposition and what differentiates them or their latest product drop, I just want them to feel like they're having a really great conversation with someone that is super stoked to hear what they're talking about. That's always my biggest thing, is that people may not remember the words you said, but they will always remember the way you made them feel. So that's something
Mm.
that I lead with, and with all my other camera operators too. Just that's 101 for when we're working on a scene, in a set, in a certain environment, in delicate environments as well, or different personalities. It's just always be aware of making sure people's day is a little bit brighter from interacting, even if it's just a sweet hello or complimenting somebody or just fucking smiling when you're behind the camera. It's so intimidating when someone's just there, like with this dead face, like looking at a monitor. Like it's very invasive. So
Mm.
it's a lot of like, dude, fucking curl those corners of your lips up and smile.
Then I guess I didn't even think about that part of it, and I always think that that whole aspect is just so funny. Like you're right, people don't be smiling all the time,
Yeah.
and I think it's such a weird concept of like doing what you do, and I'm supposed to capture the moment, but at the same time, I have to realize that I'm in a moment myself. I can't
Yes.
forget that.
Yes, and it's so easy to forget. And I know I do it all the time. I mean, my other main operator, he always snaps candids of me where I'm like double chinned looking down, like just full straight face, like just I mean, I still do it. It's just recognizing like most people don't have really big equipment and big lights beaming at them throughout their day-to-day life.
You know, it's interesting though. I was looking at your page too, and I love how detailed you were, like especially about like why like we have to sell ourselves. I think that's ultimately how we sell ourselves, and how you use a lot of detail when you say like especially like your equipment, the Shure M4V and everything. And I was like, okay, like are you into your tech like that, or do you just kind of like, oh, it's a camera, it's okay, or are you really into what like the tech side of it as well?
Beautiful question. I feel like I have to learn the tech side for the the function of it. I'm not someone that's like, oh, the latest, this thing is coming out. I'm gonna watch 30 YouTube videos. Although I did just do that because I just transitioned from all of our Sony equipment back to Canon. I was originally a Canon person, went to
Mm.
Sony because they had the facial detection, because that
Hmm.
was when it was just rolling out. This is probably 2018-ish.
Hmm.
Um, but the only reason I care about the function is because I'm always looking to level up either the systems that we do, the simplicity of what we're shooting, and then of course the caliber. I can't come on here and have my actual caliber of what I'm presenting to you look like trash when I'm like, yeah, yeah, we shoot like really high-end stuff. And it's like, yo, you got like cereal boxes behind you, bro. Like, what are you
Yes.
doing?
Yes. No, and I guess and that's why I'm like, dude, you make me want to like step up my game. Like, yes, all my equipment is mad professional. Like, if you look at what I'm looking at, like,
Yeah, it's
look at this
proper.
fucking thing.
I
You know,
see you. I
like
see you.
I even got it. Look at that. I even got it engraved with my logo. That's how
Oh, I
dedicated I am
love
to this.
it.
And I have three of these bad boys engraved with all the fixins here. Dual
Oh,
monitor, 32-inch monitors. Like
oh
it's
my
like this
gosh.
big old thing. Like,
Yeah.
um, but and it's those details that it's like not many people see. So I guess when I see that you were like into the detail too, I'm like, do you like detail too? Because I want to talk about it too. So I like that you appreciate what you do, and you to the minute detail of the
Hmm.
tech you use. It is very important. And I guess I'm really like, okay, like you make me want to step my game up. Like the two. And now I'm thinking about composition now. Now I'm thinking like the bigger picture.
Uh, uh.
Did you did you do the two plants and then the one on the side? Did you do that
Dude,
on purpose, or was that
stop
on
it.
accident?
You are just speaking to my heartstrings right now. Can we do a plant tour? Because I have
Yes.
a very all right, let's see. Oh, okay. Look at this.
Yeah, no,
This
I see you.
carnivorous, for those that are just listening, this is a beautiful carnivorous plant installation. I have not completed getting like a black. I mean, I do like the reflectiveness of the mason jar,
Yeah.
but I styled out the plants to just be little pops of color because for anybody listening that actually does a lot of on-camera stuff, you always, if possible, even if it's artificial, a pop of a natural plant or something that is that pop of green, subconsciously people affiliate you with something that's growing. So that's a
Mm.
really simple way that people feel a freshness about you. They see a freshness about your brand, and it's something that's life-giving. So always have a pop of a little plant, even if it's flowers, just a little pop. That's pretty critical.
Okay. And then because okay, and then because of the composition of it, like um it feels imbalanced, but not at the same time. And I'm wondering if this is intentional because like my squirrel brain says put light, light, plant, plant, plant. But that doesn't work, but it should on paper. Because then you
Yes.
did plant, light, light, plant, plant.
Yes.
Is that intentional? Are you doing this on purpose?
Yes, so it's a little bit of balancing out because I have a big orb down here, and normally I hope that people get to see this. I'm trying to give a good description of what their
Well, now I'm going to
ASMR.
have to. Actually, now I was actually thinking of doing it.
You got to do it, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
But so the funny thing, I guess, in turning this into actionables, because this is something where we just dropped this masterclass on the art of the on-camera interview. So for people that if you have to be on Zoom regularly, if you're doing keynote speaking, if you're doing anything that's webinar based, you should understand how to bring just to convey an extension of what you're up to in your visuals. So the funny thing about this set design that's behind me, so I have two huge key lights here that's in front of me. My primary key, I have a fill light that's to the side of this. But this is actually lighting this plant because there's
Mm.
no real light source here. And above me, I have a hair light. So it's two C stands, a boom that's coming over me to do the shadows so that it's differentiating me from the background because black is super hard. You just don't want to be blending in to a black background where I'm sinking and disappearing from it. So doing a little bit of an outline hitting the side of my arm, again, it's making me have contrast from the background. But it's really funny that I'm actually having to light the plants. They have their own dedicated light sources because these two that are below here, they actually wouldn't have a light source because they're shelved. So none of that light is actually dropping down on them. So I appreciate you noticing the detailing.
And because I've been podcasting for 5 years, and I did radio as well. I'm doing radio as well, and it's
Cool.
all voice. But like everyone keeps saying, "Just go to YouTube now, go to visual."
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how, but like that's not an excuse anymore. After the 5th year, I don't think this is an excuse anymore. I definitely am very interested, intrigued in this. That's why I really was super excited to reach out because I'm like, wow, $20 that her thing is like me. I'm just at my apartment, and you're probably gonna come up with something dope, which you did. And so,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
and,
Well,
and yeah, so I was like, I want to do this now. I want to do, and the space that I'm in is tiny,
mhm.
but coming this winter, like I will be having my own office soon, and I will be able to have my own space now. And I think that in the bigger scheme of things, I'm just taking little tidbits because come this fall, this winter, shit's gonna get cool, and I'm really excited.
Oh, that's so if I was to optimize, if nothing changed for you and this was your set design that you always had to work with,
Tell me.
the biggest thing that I would do is get an expandable green screen. So they don't just have to be held by two C stands.
Uh-huh.
It literally retracts up and it's got a self-sustaining system that like it stays popped up. So
Hmm.
it's its own controlled environment. So you roll it up, it locks in place. It's the green chroma screen, and then you can collapse it. I think that's like, because we did a system with a green screen like that for a small space that was, I think on Amazon, it's maybe like $160, but it's like, I also would, I mean, keep the chair. You can keep the chair going. Like, that's fine. Like, if nothing else of your equipment changed, but then overlay with the green screen, you just overlay like whatever big, expansive, bright office. Go to unsplash.com
Hmm.
and then search for like office environments. So it's a royalty-free, downloadable image.
Hmm.
And then that way, I mean, your lighting that's coming on you, do you have a window that's in
I have
front of
a
you to the
window
left?
to the side of me, but I also have my two lights up here.
Cool. Yep. So it's like, because you're lit well, it would just be finding something that has the same like bright airiness, but you just green screen it.
Mm.
But that would be something that when you're recording, you just pull it up, drop your background image before you start live recording. And then for like your kiddos, the lifestyle that you have, then you just retract it down, put it in the closet that's to the side of you. That would be like just boom. That would be the easiest way to, if you wanted to build a digital set design.
Like that doesn't work. Do you like that?
I know. I
Is
know.
that ghetto? Is that ghetto? Is
People
that
do
so?
it. people do it.
but in your line of work, is that ghetto? How ghetto is that on a
But you
scale of one to
know,
10?
when people do that, all I'm doing on group calls is I'm like trying to look at the diffused shapes behind you,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to figure out like what is that? And occasionally when it glitches, if you like brush your hair and you get to see through the triangle of like your shoulder to your wrist, then
Yeah.
I'm like, what is it? Like I fixate on the background.
You don't even care about what's happening anymore. You're just like,
Yeah.
tell me about the background. And I guess I was a little, I'm not gonna lie, a little intimidated. I was like, shit, she knows her shit. I'm gonna just, but this is my truth for now. For now.
Hey, I
But I
respect it.
but I think definitely now, I think you've really opened my eyes to like, set design and wanting to, further look into. See, there you go.
Oh, see, you're
See,
like,
but
you're like, welcome to the Bay Area. This is what we're talking about today. We're talking about tech. We're talking about bridges. Welcome to the Bridge Podcast.
exactly. So it's like, I guess I've always felt like using a green. I thought about it, but I was like, is it corny? Is it? And maybe
No.
it's just because I haven't found the right one, the right
Yes.
the backdrop.
Let me give you one more pro tip is you take a stock image that you're like, oh, that looks cool. Wow, it looks like a nice, fresh, bright, open room. Or I want things that look like a cigar lounge. So some leather couches, whatever in the background, like it looks slick. But then blur it just a little bit. Don't take a very crisp image because if you want it to look high end, like the lens that I'm working with right now is a 70 to 200 2.8. So it's like I actually have the depth of field, but you'll notice in the background it's a little bit blurred.
Mm,
But if you take a green screen image and just add a little bit of diffusion, you can use Canva. I mean, there can be
yeah.
plenty of free tools to just blur it a little bit. So that way it already levels up people's perception that you're working with a higher caliber camera than you actually are because you just generated a depth of field if everything's a little diffused and blurred. That's like ground zero. Just
Mm.
looks slick. We actually have a YouTube, it's a little mini master class on how to use a green screen backdrop, and like also just the full run through of our last, so the first and second season of our podcast, the podcast rigs that we used, we did a huge deep dive of like, yo, buy the Scarlett 2i12, like this is the equipment, these are the iPod, or these are the stands, this is the system, this is how it feeds into your computer, this is like just a full walkthrough, because some people might think like, oh, well, aren't you going to like shoot yourself in the foot? Don't you want that business? But for the people that are willing to actually dig, and if they are self-starters, it was just, hey, here's 4 years of us recording and what we used and what was the systems. Because our first year of recording the Ruby Hour podcast, that's one of the podcasts that I produce. For every 1 hour we actively recorded with guests, it was 19 hours of post-production processing.
Oh my
So that's
God.
so that's like, sound, the actual building the 1 hour episode, but then it was recognizing, well, we need this to rank on Google. So it was building blog articles from the transcript, have key notes of the time index for key moments that topics people maybe they want to jump 30 minutes into the episode. They're curious about, oh yeah, that time, what kind of boats was it that they're working on? Let's hear more about that. And then building it into our social media, the drip on our content, as well as our email list. So it was insane. And what's awesome now for people that are like, hey, I want to do my niche podcast or a niche offering, so much of AI can do all this in a heartbeat, which is
Yep. Yeah.
amazing. I'm like, I used to have people on staff where that was all they did was help transcribe and process what we were doing. So it's more accessible than ever, and there's so many amazing tools. But like you're saying, or the thing that I want to acknowledge about your show, and as you're producing in this season of your life, the key thing is consistency, to just don't stop doing it. Because it's one thing to have an amazing set design, but if I can only do this once every 6 months, guess what? If you dropped an episode every 6 weeks, or if say once a week, and then I'm doing it once every 6 months, you have math. You have like almost 25 episodes that are floating out there to my one. So you're 25 times more likely to be picked up on whatever topic, if you and I talk about the same things, because you're becoming more relevant and building real momentum. So it's like, dude, just work with what you've got. Like that's the biggest thing, is just do it. Like literally just don't stop doing it, because as you become more prolific, then you upgrade your stuff, and then you get to look back on, the 4 years ago whenever you started, launching this show. You get to celebrate like, oh my gosh, like I hope the set design looked terrible when you started, because that shows how
Hmm.
much you've grown. Like what an amazing milestone, and just those, like, they're those mementos as
Hmm.
you continued to develop and continue to see it evolve.
That's so cool. Thank you for that little bit. That's I'm stealing shit from you, and that's kind of
Get it.
it's the stealing podcast now, where I'm stealing shit from you.
Yes, welcome to the
And
stealing kleptos.
and I guess we're winding down here. I definitely, this is the part where I want you just to shamelessly plug everything you're into and what you have your hands dipped. Where can we find you? Where can people who are just like me um find all your stuff? Shamelessly plug the
Beautiful.
shit out of it.
Let's go. Okay, so let's start off. My company is called Ruby Riot Creatives. Ruby like the stone, Riot like a big old rager of a party, and then creatives like a group of artists. So rubyriotcreatives.com. That's going to be where all of our latest coursework, our portfolio, our latest blog features, our podcast episodes. So that's the home base of finding any of the goodies. We are launching, as I mentioned, a masterclass on
Hmm.
the art of being on camera. It's specifically towards introverted male tech founders. Super niche. But
Yeah.
essentially, we just realized that with our existing community, we've just watched so many amazing titans of business. They are behind the scenes building insane concepts. They're having to do go to market strategies. They're having to do pitch decks. They're doing a product launch. They have to talk on camera. And the marketing teams, they're like, all right, we got everything. Here's the questions they're going to ask. And they don't tell their founders what to wear, what not to wear, any thought to the actual set design. They're just bringing in video contractors in that are shooting in your, coffee room. They're moving stuff around. It's not impressive. They don't have a pop of a plant in the background. And so it's like, it's a crash course to help people where the last place you want to be is on camera, how to be confident when you're on camera. So I'm super stoked on it. Also, everything is themed around the Godfather film. So like our promo
Mm.
video for it, I like slicked my hair black, and like I gave myself a mustache, and like I was like, "You come to my house," and like it's very entertaining. There's like guns on the table and crossbows, and like it's fun. There's meat. So that is a good opportunity. So if you go to rubyriotcreatives.com/interview, that's our landing page for joining the waitlist for that course. And if you use the promo code, let's do the acronym DTRH. Is that correct?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
They will get 15% off of when we open up this fall for enrollment. So that's a little goodie for your community. And we can add a little note in the description for this episode.
Hell yeah.
And beyond that, let's see, all of our social media is Ruby Riot Creatives. So at Ruby Riot Creatives, my handles are at Shelby Ring, like the ring you wear, but that's the wheelhouse. That's everything that we're up to. And also the biggest thing too is the best way that people can help me is if they enjoyed this episode to please go and write the most baller review for Louise being the best interviewer of all time, so that he can have more momentum with this awesome show.
Well, thank you so much. That was the probably one of my favorite what do you call it? Plugs that I've ever done. That was so much fun. Yeah, yeah. And thank you so much, Shelby, for taking the time to talk to me and letting me pick your brain. You guys have been listening to Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. DTRH. I'll put everything on the description. But again, thank you, thank you, thank you. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Louise.
Hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Bro, what the fuck? you still have my sister for your voicemail? You need to change that shit. Because when somebody calls you for a job opportunity, they're gonna be like, so is it sushi or you're crazy? um, Bro, this is crazy.
Lois, I literally cannot.
Okay, we can't hang up. What's the phone?
Hey, sweet cakes, it's me. I was just calling to let you know how much I really do miss you, babe. I've been thinking of you all day, and I hope that you're having a great day, because I know how you told me how much your coworkers are annoying. It's okay, babe, because I know you're gonna get through it. But I really do hope you have a good day, and I was thinking of making you your favorite pasta. What do you think? But babe, I really miss you. Please give me a call when you get the chance. I love you.
You're so cute. You're so cute. Damn, Luis, you just keep giving me challenge after challenge, and you know I'm down. But I'm interested in all the cochinadas que quieres hacerme. I'm like curious about it. What can it be? Well, let's just find out, I guess. All right, I'll talk to you soon.